so-called Brand Marketers Summit earlier in the week out at the Omni at Barton Creek. And excuse me, you'll hear more about MediaPost a little bit later when the 9:30 panel goes on, which is called Talk to the Brand, AI Bots and Conversational Marketing. Meanwhile, we've had a couple of sponsors here for all of our weekly activities out at Barton Creek and here today, Salesforce Marketing Cloud and Selligent. Selligent has been a great supporter of MediaPost events for, I think, a dozen years, and so we really appreciate that. And they bought you breakfast this morning. Thanks for coming out. Enjoy it with us, and thanks for giving your attention for a few minutes to CMO of Selligent, Nick Worth. So he's going to come up and take you through it.
Thanks, Ken. I'm going to, both my parents worked. There wasn't a lot of time. We had to get out of the house. We had to fight about how much sugar was going to be on the cereal, whether we need healthy cereal or sugared cereal. My sister seemed to get the sugared cereal, not me, because she was the bad kid. The good kid had to eat the plain cereal. And then I went off to college, couldn't cook, didn't know how to do anything, and also was broke. More cereal. First job, still broke, still don't know how to cook. Cereal, 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 because it's so convenient, because it's so easy. And it kind of became a part of my life. It is also turns out to be super cool. This is the Serial Killer Cafe. I don't know if any of you have ever been to the Serial Killer Cafe. There are two of them. One's in Shoreditch, one's in Camden in London. And what they do is they serve cereal. They have about 150 different kinds of cereal, all different kinds of milk and fruit. And for £4 or £5, you can have a bowl of cereal. And you might be thinking, how do I know this is cool? Well, you know it's cool because of these guys. These are the guys that run the Serial Killer Cafe. They're a couple of twins, Alan and Gary Keary from Dublin, from Belfast, from Northern Ireland, who run the Serial Killer Cafe, and they are serious, full-on millennial dudes. Got the beards, got the authenticity, they got some ink, and they sell cereal because they're passionate about cereal. I don't think they're in it because they're going to make a lot of money. They're in it because they love cereal and they love old cereals. Here's the inside of the place. It kind of looks like a kitchen. I don't know if you can see, but up there in the corner is pretty much my favorite cereal of all time, Millennials. I don't know if any of you remember Millennials, but this is a Cheerios product that came out just before the year 2000. Before Millennials meant Millennials, when we had the Millennium, Cheerios took out every fourth round zero and replaced it with a 2 and made year 2000 cereal, which you can still buy on eBay for quite a hefty price. So that's pretty awesome product marketing, I guess. The problem is, despite the twins and despite my childhood, cereal sales are tanking. Ready-to-eat cereal has been crashing in the marketplace. People don't love this convenient food anymore. And the reason that they don't like it anymore is because they don't think it's convenient. Because it involves washing the dishes from time to time. Not necessarily even the same, dishes are involved. What's taking its place? Food bars. Because you just eat it, throw it away. This is an example to me of how something that was once super convenient and appealing to consumers, largely because of its convenience, has now lost its appeal for the very same reason that it had appeal in the first place. What was once convenient has become inconvenient. And the reason is because we all expect so much more than we used to. We are entitled. We think everything should be better, faster, more personalized, cheaper, and we all deserve special privileges. I have been involved in a series of idiotic conversations with my colleagues about Uber and Lyft and how the icon of the vehicle that is coming to collect you often lags as much as 4 or 5 seconds behind the actual location of the car. And doesn't that suck, and isn't that a bad experience? Be a little bit slow. And that's really annoying and gets us all pissed off, and we go tell everybody what a ripoff it is. Our expectations are through the roof. Here's some statistical stuff. 90% of consumers, this is a 2014 Harris poll, expect real-time customer service. Everyone's expecting there to be same-day delivery, which is pretty challenging given the size of this country. And half of people expect retailers to ship goods to them before they order them. Anticipatory commerce, it's an actual category of things. Well, my point is not whether anticipatory commerce is a real thing or not. It's more about what we all, as marketers, are facing in the marketplace today. Personalization is critical. Chipotle has figured out how to take the quick model and make it customizable so you can have whatever you want really quick. McDonald's, super fast, built on convenience, but no personalization. And they're suffering because also other issues here like health, what they have. And at the heart of this is millennials and Gen Z, and what that group is saying is, don't market to me like a member of a generation. Don't market to me as a segment or an age cohort. Don't use a picture of a dude with a beard and a watch cap because that's not me. I'm just me. My segment is a segment of one. You have all my data. I'm okay with that as long as you use that data to craft personalized messaging that's relevant, right? Earlier generations thought of themselves as part of a generation. Millennials don't, they reject that. They reject the group thing. Their grandparents hate display retargeting that chases them around the internet as they go from site to site and the ads pop up. These guys are like, I don't mind that, but if I've made the purchase, why is the ad still coming there? Or what's the data problem? Why can't you guys work this out? They're happy to share data, but they want something in return. There are other issues as well. So they want convenience, they want value, they want relevance, and when they say they, I kind of think I mean we all want that. And furthermore, hyperconnectivity and digital media means everybody is hearing more and more from brands. In 1970, you'd get about 500 brand impressions a day as a consumer. In the US today, it's 5,000. A marketer has to fight through 10 times the volume of messaging that they used to. As a result of all this media saturation, our attention spans are now down to 8 seconds on average, which is slightly less than a goldfish, which clocks in at about 9.5 seconds. Okay? And it's kind of silly and stupid, but it's very real in terms of trying to connect with people. There's a new sociological phenomenon called continuous partial attention, which is when Gen Z and to a lesser extent millennials connect with multiple devices at the same time and live like a network node receiving signal and noise from all those devices simultaneously. Something on the big screen, something on the phone, maybe flipping through a magazine, and you as a marketer have to penetrate through that continuous partial attention and become signal and not noise. Favorite short internet acronym, TLDR, which means too long didn't read. You have to get through all of that with short and sharp messaging in the voice of the folks to whom you are communicating. Tons of challenges out there for us. Okay. Meanwhile, we're still in the world of mass communication. We're still assuming that everyone follows the same path to purchase, which is nonsense. We know that that's not really true. We treat everyone the same, and we fail to be in the moment, right? So, in our view, it's all about moments, which Google has beautifully captured in this video.
Grinding sound when you turn the key?
So great job by Google capturing how all of these opportunities to engage with people are really in moments. And being there as a marketer in that moment is the great opportunity that you have to displace an incumbent, to meet a need, to engage in a relevant fashion, and to align yourselves as a brand of choice for that consumer. So we call this approach to marketing consumer first marketing, which is basically a way of saying you need to not think about the channel first. You need to not think about the product first or the age cohort first or whatever it is. You need to think about what is the need that you can meet and how can you meet it and how can you drive personalized one-to-one marketing that connects with that need, because that's how you're going to cut through all these challenges of contemporary marketing. So what are the principles we have? Obviously, respect and preference. If people say don't communicate to me on SMS, you don't. If they say I only want to hear from you once a week, you do. You respect their privacy and don't allow data breaches. You deliver content which makes sense to them and it is the voice that they use and talks to the issues that they have. You're delivering value all the time. And finally, what you're doing is contextually relevant. So if they're in a store, you're talking to them knowing that they're in a store. If it's raining where they are, you know that. If they've been surfing a particular part of a website, you know that too, so that you're serving up engagement stuff that's relevant to the mindset that they have. So there are 4 principles here. For the sake of time, I'm only going to talk about 2 examples, but I think they're pretty interesting. So first, talking about relatable content. So ING is a big bank. Like most retail banks, they want to build relationships with consumers just as they're in or leaving university, because that's when you start a bank account that you are likely to keep for many, many years. So ING says we need more customers, but rather than thinking about their products and how great their products are, they thought, what do kids in Europe do and what problems do they have? So kids in Europe, as some of you probably know, go to music festivals a lot. All summer they're like at music festivals, that's the focus of their summer, that's what they talk about, whether it's Tomorrowland or whatever, they're going there, and they have real problems when they go to music festivals. There is no place to park, there are no clean toilets, and there's no place to put your stuff. Kind of messes up your whole concert experience. You're going to spend 3 days listening to great music, but you've got all these problems. So ING is like, okay, we're going to build clubhouses with toilets and lockable lockers and parking. And we're going to ask people to give us their email address. We're going to give them some social sharing tools, and they align themselves with those 20-somethings and drove a huge tick in new customer relationships with their most valuable demographic. I talked earlier about contextually relevant communications. So next client I want to talk about is Redfin. So Redfin is an online retailer, real estate agent. Real estate is a tough thing to market because the transactions could be 10 or 15 years apart. You don't have much of a relationship with the customers in between those transactions. And it's hard to spend a lot of money to stay in touch with people who may or may not come back to purchase for another 6 or 7 years. But you sort of want to, so what do? So they came up with a contextual program. The program was this. After you buy a house through Redfin, they set up a trigger, and the first time it snows on your new house, they send you an email. And the email basically says, wow, it snowed on your new house. How are you feeling about that? It's kind of cool. Did you take some pictures? Send us the pictures. You have any problems with the plumbing or the roof or whatever? We can connect you to some service providers. We want to make sure that you're okay and that everything's going well. We're thinking of you. Hope you're enjoying your first snow day, right? That costs essentially nothing other than some weather feed data, postal code data. And it feels really personal because it is actually a moment for you when the snow falls on your house for the first time and it looks all virginal and beautiful. And it's a great way of staying in touch with consumers. It's cheap, keeps you aligned with them, and it's very relatable. So there's the email. Brings us to Selligent, which is our technology platform. We drive marketing automation at scale, so one-to-one communications across all channels, email, social, SMS, mobile push, a certain amount of web personalization as well. And the idea is that we're looking at consumers not as an email address or not as a phone number, but rather as a person with a 360-degree profile across all these different channels. And we're looking at their behavior in various places, whether that's the physical world, online, and using that to target more effectively. And as we do that, we gain more feedback into our natively integrated platform and driving out more relevant engagement. It's also built, unlike the marketing clouds, it's built for marketers with limited resources, crappy IT support, and built to be able to be usable by marketers themselves. And we're 100% about relationship marketing. So we're in the trenches with you, supporting you, providing the service you need to deliver on the relationships that you have with your consumers and grow the lifetime value of all the customer relationships that you have. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Nick, thank you. Thank you again for kicking off the day for us here. Nick.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to OMA at South by Southwest. How many of you are even know who the hell we are? Who MediaPost is? You get one of our 68 newsletters that we send out. Well, great. So we're meeting a lot of new people. And we do every year here. We've been doing this for 4 years now. For those of you who don't know MediaPost, we're the largest publisher of marketing and media news and analysis in the US. We have, as I said, about 68 newsletters. We also do about 30 events here and in Europe. We've been doing this for 20 years. And one of the things that we've been doing for the last 20 years is interrogating the emerging channels in digital marketing and media. Not cheerleading, but interrogating, asking as journalists, asking how this stuff matters, especially to media and marketing professionals, how it fits into the larger context of culture and marketing. And that's what we try to do here at South by. We try to take up the theme of emerging platforms and cutting-edge technologies and look at the ways in which they matter to marketers, the ways in which marketers are trying to make creative use of them, trying to fit them into that larger set of conversations that go on with their customers. And the theme this year, if one thing knits together this whole day, it is the humanizing of the machine. As we're watching these technologies become more advanced, become more intimate, one of the things that we're seeing is marketers and media trying to humanize them, trying to make them more conversational, try to bring them closer to everyday life and to become augmentations of everyday life and not simply media as we've always known it. We're in the middle of a radical transformation in the ways in which both media and brands talk to you. And that's where we're going to start today. We're going to start with conversational marketing and the ways in which machines, especially through artificial intelligence and bots, are starting to talk to us in more human-like ways. But do we want this? Do we really want conversations with brands? Or does one of the prospects of this is, does it help us take these interfaces that we've been struggling with for the last 20, 25 years, help them melt away and help us relate to them more and help them simply make the interactions easier? So to take up our first topic, talk to the brand, AI, bots, and conversational marketing. We have taking the lead here an old friend of MediaPost, Frank Schoenenberg, who is the founder of Venture Fuel, the Global Director of Innovation at GE. Please welcome Fred in our first panel.
Put us out on the edge here. This is nice. It's a good segue to what I do, actually. I'm going to do a 10-second what Venture Fuel does. We try and find leading-edge companies. We've built a global innovation network, specifically looking for the newest things in tech, trends, and then partnering them with the largest brands. So we've been very involved in the AI world and are kind of all in on conversational marketing. So I'm thrilled to be here just because of the topic, but mostly because of the panel that we have. I'm going to let everyone sort of introduce themselves. So, Steph, if you want to.
Yeah, hi everybody, I'm Steph Hay. I lead conversation design at Capital One, and that includes all of our conversational interfaces like Alexa, and as of yesterday, Eno, the first natural language SMS chatbot from US Bank.
Chris?
Chris McCann, CEO of 1-800-Flowers.com. And if you're familiar with us at all, you know besides flowers, we have all of these different food brands like Harry and David and Cheryl's Cookies and many, many others. And my job, and kind of our job as a company, is always trying to be on the forefront of changes in technology that change consumer behavior. So we've been always looking at how we went from a single retail flower shop to a telephonic commerce, to e-com, to mobile commerce, and now what we see is the early emerging days of social or conversational commerce.
Great, Sam.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sam Olstein. Very happy to be here. It took me 12 hours to get to Austin yesterday. So I'm super happy to be here. Great to see everyone on a rainy morning. I run global media and innovation for the General Electric company. And thanks for having me, Fred.
Great. So the topic today is essentially talking to brands, creating bots, AI, conversational marketing. And sort of my first question to the group, and maybe we can use your videos to explain it, is do consumers really need this? Are we looking for new ways to buy flowers? I kind of look at Alexa and I have it, I love it, but I live in a one-bedroom apartment in New York City. Is it necessary for me to ask someone to turn on the lights for me? Is that is something that I've been craving my whole life? So I think what I'd love for you guys to do is answer that briefly, and then maybe we'll go to your individual videos and then dive in from there. So Sam, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's absolutely a purpose and a role for a bot in all of our lives. And to me, what I've learned over the course of a couple experiments is that a good bot does one thing and does one thing really well, and that's pretty much it. And so if you can crush it at that one thing, whether it's turning on the lights, a flash news brief, helping get flowers to people you love, I think those are really clear pieces of value that are also removing friction in the ways that we go about doing some of those activities. So I think, yes, they're a role for bots. And when I go through kind of our case study, it was one of those experiments that coming out of it, I think it was a really good learning of how to better optimize for this ecosystem.
Great. Chris.
I wasn't sure if you're going to his video. I kind of look at it a little bit differently. I always look at new technologies when they come out. It's hard to say there's a earning or a burning need for that, right? Was there a burning need for an MP3 player when it came out? But technology tends to create markets. I look at it a little bit differently and recognize that technology is always going to be driving change. Therefore, there is a need for us to be on the forefront of that change. Consumers will migrate that way. Things like bots and AI capabilities are making our lives easier, and it's always been our job to make it easy for our customers to deliver a smile. So we have to be out on the forefront, because if we try and stay where we are, yes, people can come to our mobile, our e-commerce, they could still call us on the telephone, for crying out loud. They could still mail an order in for us if they'd like.
People do that?
Yes, they do.
All right.
Yeah, and we'll continue to take it if that's what they would like. But consumers change, and we have to be there. And I look at what we did with the bot and Facebook Messenger. The reason we did it is because you just look at where people are spending their time. They're spending their time in messaging platforms.
Right.
And then if that's where they're spending their time, they want to interact with the brand in the way that they choose to, not the way I choose to. So I don't want to take them out of Messenger and into a structured website that they have to follow. Let me interact with them in a very conversational manner at scale through a bot.
That's right. Exactly the same. It's a matter of being where the customer is, and change is inevitable, so you're part of it, and we are part of it. So the other difference with banking is that money is on your mind in and out of your daily behavior. So if you're opening up your refrigerator and seeing that things aren't in it and wanting to order takeout, Alexa's sitting on your countertop. That might be exactly the moment when you ask for your balance. You're not sitting down and going into banking mode, you're living your life. And same thing with Eno, the chatbot that we launched yesterday. This is because you're standing at the grocery store and you want to be able to text to get a quick check of your balance, almost like your vital signs, like how are things? Where are things with my money? That's the kind of stuff that happens when you're out and about, not when you're sitting in front of your computer, opening up, signing in, looking, downloading your transactions. Of course, there's a place for that, to sit down and do banking, but people are on the go. And to answer your original question, too, about whether or not you need to use Alexa to turn on your lights, I mean, only you can answer that, really, but it's about friction, right? Just like Sam said, if you want to be able to continue to be part of the change, to take some of the friction out of people's lives and make things easier, then you are going to be, as a company, where your customers are, which might actually just be in their house.
So let me just understand that one example you gave. I open the refrigerator because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
There's nothing in my fridge, so I say, Alexa, do I have enough money to buy food today?
Yeah, right. That's exactly right.
I will say one downside to reducing all the friction was I tested out some of the products that you guys offer, and I ordered flowers through Alexa. And it took less than a minute to have a dozen roses sent, which then made that not as special to my girlfriend. She laughed. She was like, that was so easy. Like, it's not even romantic. And I was like,
That's not fair.
I was like, okay, we'll be ordering those from work moving forward.
That's a branding challenge.
Yeah, that's actually my problem, right? Not yours. I think what would be great is to show some of the examples of some of the great work you guys are doing. So, Mark, if you could start with Steph's example.
With Eno, you can talk to your money even when...
Alexa, play Steph's example.
With Eno, you can talk to your money even when you can't talk. Eno lets you keep up with your Capital One accounts without keeping up your wife.
Gerbils don't like pound cake.
Use Eno to manage your money while you manage the meeting.
Yes. Yes, what, Larry?
Introducing Eno from Capital One, your personal text-based intelligent assistant.
Yes. Yes.
That's great. Can we just go right into 1-800-Flowers? Kind of do them back to back, and then we'll talk about it.
1-800-Flowers.com is a constant innovator within their market space. With 9 brands delivering one best-in-class customer experience, 1-800-Flowers.com is helping to ensure that the right flowers, chocolates, and fruits are present for every special occasion. Now, 1-800-Flowers.com is using IBM's AI technology to better serve their customers' gifting needs.
Really, when you step back, we look at ourselves as an innovation company that happens to be in the gifting business. Over the years that we've been in business, it's always about looking at the customer experience and how do we recreate that same kind of one-to-one relationship we had in our local neighborhood flower shops many years ago. So we use technology to do that. Now we're bringing Gwen to the table. And Gwen is a AI-powered gift concierge. And the beauty about Gwen is she gets to establish that one-to-one relationship by constantly learning how customers are interacting with her and adjusting to know what best to serve you, the individual customer, from our family of products, our family of brands. So Gwen enables us to be brand agnostic and build a relationship that says, I know you're looking to send a gift. I'll recommend a gift from this family of brands that's best for the occasion and the person that you're shopping for.
An act of kindness creates a fond, everlasting memory. For 40 years, 1-800-Flowers.com has been dedicated to ensuring a superb customer experience from order to delivery.
Gwen is really helping us to deliver a great customer experience, from our advertising and marketing messages on how we engage you, to the shopping experience, to the delivery experience. She learns from you what you're looking for, and she'll only serve up the gifts that are appropriate. If you tell us, I need the gift today, she's only going to serve up gifts that are available same-day delivery, of which we have many. If you tell me I have until tomorrow or I have until next week, I'm actually thoughtful and planning ahead, then Gwen knows that there are many more gifts that she can offer up to you based on the delivery capabilities and our in-stock capabilities as well.
There are no special moments in life where flowers are not a welcomed guest. Every time a 1-800-Flowers.com gift is received is a special moment.
And now we're on the forefront of using AI, cognitive computing technology, to really help us deliver that personalized relationship. We have what our customers need, what our customers turn to us for, to help them deliver smiles to the important people in their lives.
If we did the GE one. I will say while we're waiting, if you guys go to the Capital One house, you have to see their new credit cards. They're pretty insane. They're like made of wood. They're all new different shapes. I know that's a really little thing. I think
Thanks,
it's amazing.
Fred.
Sorry, a little pitch.
Antone's, that's right.
Antone's, yeah.
Where is it? At Antone's. Oh, Antone's. Yep. I think it's over on 5th. 5th and Congress. Thank you, Jackie Welsh, our PR person.
Beaker.
Distilled water.
Hydrogen peroxide.
Welcome to Labracadabra. You've chosen foam fountain. Pour half cup hydrogen peroxide into your bottle. Be sure not to smell it. Did you complete that step?
Yes.
Great. Let's move on. Get ready to light up the room with homemade magma. Remove cap and slowly fill your bottle 2/3 of the way up with oil. I just learned that there are over 500 species of yeast. Anyways, did it dissolve yet?
Yes.
Now take one antacid tablet and drop it into the bottle. Hang up your lab coat for the day. You've earned it.
What a great name, Labracadabra.
Labracadabra, yeah, that's awesome. Good
Bam.
name.
Did you come up with that?
Whiz bam.
So
Great name.
It is a great name. Talk to me a little bit about the creative limitations. We're obviously talking about a whole bunch of different, AI can mean so many different things, but if you think about, let's say Alexa, which seems to be a common thread, they're kind of choosing your brand spokesperson. You guys have spent millions and millions of dollars and many years creating your brand, and now you're essentially turning over your spokesperson to a bot. How do you make that your own? How do you kind of overcome some of the complications that are within that, inherent within that? I think Steph.
Sure. One of the things that we actually just heard even in the GE video was Alexa's voice saying, "Great." And that is really the biggest limitation right now is, the technology is, for things like modulating voice and tone, affecting the experience. And that can be in ways you wouldn't expect, like when she says great, she sounds friendly. When she says hello, she sounds a little judgy. So when we are talking about the kinds of conversations we might want to have as part of our brand, what looks good on paper isn't necessarily what we hear her voice say. It doesn't reflect the brand. So we have to do shifts to the experience, like saying hi there instead, because of the way that her intonation comes through. It sounds like a more approachable welcome. And we also have to balance everything that we would create as part of the Capital One Challenger brand against something that people already expect from the Alexa voice. So it doesn't feel like all of a sudden Alexa has a different personality entirely, which will then start to raise some credibility issues before we even get into the conversation.
Very good. Chris?
Yeah, I take a look at that, and I think a lot of it is design of language, right? So even if you're not utilizing a voice, but let's start with the bots in Messenger, and recognizing who the audience is that's in Messenger and what should our language back and forth be with them. It's different than if I'm appealing to our core demographic of the Harry and David customer who's a bit older than the core demographic of the Messenger users. So we got to look at what language, what words we're using. Again, even if it's not spoken, but is it hello versus hi? things like that. Then when you do take it into a voice-enabled platform, yes, I think it's a matter of what's the full customer experience behind it, and isn't a customer experience that you recognize from the brand. So in the case of your experience in being able to place a flower order on Alexa in under a minute, well, that's because you already have an account with us, you're able to access your address book, so you're able to access the elements of our experience just spoken through a different voice. So it's always constantly working on that. But then the key long-term for us is, and why we launched Gwyn, which Gwyn is our AI-powered today, text-based virtual gift concierge, but we expect Gwyn and the persona that we developed for Gwyn to actually be our brand in many different platforms in the future.
Yeah, I think there are lots of creative limitations with the Alexa ecosystem right now, and it just has to do with, you know, the natural language, as Chris was just talking about, with, you know, communicating with a robot, and especially, you know, with our experience with Labracadabra, which was a new kind of sub-brand that we launched, you know, anchored by a skill, and where Alexa was like your lab assistant, and taking people through this experience of doing some of these DIY science experiments at home. You know, it was clunky at times because you're getting directions and you're combining ingredients, and that takes some time. And so while you're in the process of combining stuff, we played some music on Alexa, or we actually leaned into the kind of stiff, robotic nature that Steph was just referring to, and actually wrote a couple of like really bad jokes that Alexa, you know, said as you were combining stuff.
Do you want to share one? No?
If I can, I mean,
okay.
There was a joke about like polar bears, but it was really about polarity between chemicals.
Okay. Oh, I see. Nicely
really,
done.
yeah.
Learning jokes.
We wouldn't get it anyway.
So yeah, so we just tried to kind of lean into those limitations, because they're definitely there. And you know, even when you start up a skill, you kind of have to say enable whatever the skill is, which isn't very human.
Right.
Right. So just kind of working around that stuff.
I think another part about that too is the limitations that we have on learning about what's actually happening on the Alexa platform. It's no joke that Amazon doesn't share the raw data with us about what customers are saying. So we're really working off of sort of you know, analysis from Amazon about what it is that the utterances, the language that folks are speaking to the Alexa. We're working off that. So our learning is actually limited a little bit on the raw data side, which is why there's so much opportunity in something like an SMS chatbot, because we have access to all of the raw data of the language to be able to really understand what the population is looking for. And so something like natural language in voice, which is full spoken sentences, is actually completely different in texting. Natural language in texting is emojis. It's using Y instead of yes, or N instead of no. It is the natural language of the platform, of that audience, is absolutely crucial to know, so that you can design something not just creatively, but also anthropologically relevant to that audience.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's important, and why we got involved in last year in those 3 different platforms. It's important to be involved in a number of different initiatives in any early emerging change, because we'll get some learnings from Alexa, we'll get some learnings from the bot, but they're going to be different than the learnings we get through Gwyn right now. Yep. But it's really taking the combination of all of that, and I guess the same reasons why you've launched Eno, to get that kind of learning, and then cipher through them and onto the next voice platform. I think, well, we'll get different kind of learnings from that voice platform.
That's right. And also, we're on Cortana as well, and it's, again, just a completely different audience, completely different use cases. So continuing to explore all of these emerging technologies and figure out what the audiences, or what the markets want from us, at the same time designing those into our roadmaps to make those experiences more relevant, is really crucial.
I think discovery is also a huge limitation. Which is why I think platforms like Messenger are so appealing, because they are at scale, and it's probably easier to go about finding and discovering some of these new interesting efforts. But in Alexa and even like in the Slack bot ecosystem, discovery is really challenging.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that's interesting in the Facebook realm is you can actually place ads now. I think they call them destination ads where you can actually put the bot within the ad too. So you can start the conversation right there, which kind of accelerates it. Talk a little bit about privacy. Obviously, your bank, credit card information.
What?
Are people willing to give up their privacy to have these conversations and have a personalized robot concierging them through life?
No, nobody's going to give up their privacy. We're a highly regulated industry, and privacy and security are number one for us, because money is no joke, and we are really committed to making sure that any platform that we go on also protects our customers in the same way that we do. So some of the things that we've enabled along the way, though, because it's more the consumer adoption, even talking to Alexa about your money can feel a little scary if you, for example, live in a college dorm. So we, working with Amazon, invented what's called a personal key, which is a 4-digit code that only you know, that you can speak and that Alexa will prompt you at. It's an optional layer of security. Alexa will prompt you to say in order to verify that it's really you. And we have, of course, stepped up authentication for, or we will have stepped up authentication when we get into higher volume use or higher risk use cases like moving money. But when we started, just to get onto the platforms, we are using essentially informational kinds of use cases, like what's your balance, or things that you can generally get over SMS notifications, just to start seeing how people want to actually interact with these different text-based or voice-based messaging platforms with us.
Yeah, so I look at privacy somewhat different, I think. I start first, well, privacy is about personal information. I think consumers, our customers, want us to utilize their personal information to constantly enhance the customer experience. And the more we can do that and get it to a personalized experience at scale, the more information they'll continue to give us, if they trust that we are securing that information and that you don't have access to it. So I think customers aren't willing to give up privacy, but they're willing to give up information to make the experience more and more personalized to them and easy. Again, in the case of checking out with us within under 1 minute, that's because we have the information of your wife and her address and where it's being delivered to. You don't have to give us that again. Just say, yes, deliver that. Now, we need to make sure that that information can only be accessed by you. And again, that goes to some of the things you're talking about. Maybe it's voice recognition if it's on a voice platform. So security gives you privacy, but personal information gives you a personalized experience.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The benefits of sharing your information, for the most part, helps deliver a better experience because content is tailored to you. It's so much quicker. Can learn the right things about you. Our experience was really interesting because we were dealing with privacy issues around children, and we really built Labracadabra off of the insight that kids love talking to Alexa. And since Amazon has actually launched a whole monthly STEM subscription for kids, it was difficult, and we had a lot of lawyers who helped us. A lot of third-party testing of the chemicals and materials that we were shipping to families, because there was also an e-commerce component. If you didn't have it was all household ingredients, but if you didn't have stuff in your house, you could order a kit with all the experiments. But yeah, it was definitely challenging navigating around privacy, especially with children, because I'm not sure exactly what age it is, but you have to be a certain age to inherently agree to brands or Amazon using what is said back to Amazon. I want to say it might be 13, but yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, and there's always a responsibility to protect the data. And so, for example, we just came out of our Valentine's Day holiday. And one of our top customers sent flowers to 12 different women around the country. Now, that's data that we would never want to get out about who that was, Fred. And it was interesting, though, that you signed a card message on each one of them to my one and only. But that's information we wouldn't let out publicly.
It's all about scale.
This is one of the things about this, though, too, is that we're all facilitating offline life. We're all using conversational platforms like this to, in some cases, I guess, more interestingly than others, we're facilitating parents and kids having time together, or smiles, moments in life, right? Or people being able to get on with their lives with reassurance or confidence about where they stand with their money. And that's really the brand building piece about all of this, is that it's actually, the technology is enabling us to connect with customers because we're enabling them to have things easier in their lives, because they're able to have more time together, because they're able to stress less, whatever it might be. But there's an underlying motivation there that the tool, the platforms can really help to facilitate.
That's great. We'd like to open it up to questions in a minute. I want to ask one question that I have to do because of my job, which is, what do you guys see that's next? You guys are really pushing the envelope here. This is all changing so very quickly. And before I actually ask that question, I will say I bumped into Sam at some art tech museum, and he had the best answer I've ever heard to what's up with you. He's like, oh, I'm leaving right now to fly to wire a volcano to make sure the sensors were all talking to each other. I was like, I might or may not go to the gym tomorrow. That was my next step. So Sam, let's start with you. See if you can stay in the volcano level.
Thanks, Fred. We did wire volcano, and we actually have more content from the volcano coming up soon. So be on the lookout for that. You know, I'm really interested to see how some of this stuff plays together. You know, because as humans, I think this just goes to Steph's point, right? These technologies are enabling more human interaction, more human behavior, and naturally you flow between your phone and a skill and your commute, and so I'm really interested to see how some of these platforms kind of coexist together. With Labracadabra, what we tried to do was build this new brand in 3 pieces. One was a skill on Alexa. One was a direct-to-consumer e-commerce play with these kits. And then the third piece were these kind of social-first, top-down videos built for Facebook and Instagram, so kind of like a Tasty for science with Labracadabra. And so it was these beautiful, very quick experiments with just incredible kind of zoomed in, experimental content that's very similar to a lot of the recipe stuff that does so well on social. So I'm really interested to see how these platforms kind of coexist together, and how other companies, technology companies, are weaving those experiences from one platform to the next.
Yeah, so I take a look at it, and I think first and foremost, we view ourselves as being very early in the early stages of conversational commerce. So for us, it's about learning. Learning, then iterating, enhancing the products, then expanding the products as we go forward. But I look at this really as being built on a foundation of things that we've seen coming for years, starting with big data, deep analytics, and now machine learning, cognitive computing on top of that. So it really is starting to change the way we can think, change the way we as businesses can act, and certainly change the way consumers interact with us. So learn, iterate, enhance, and there are more platforms coming out now. So to our earlier discussion, we're getting different learnings from the different platforms we're involved now, but there's more to come. And it's still, before we get anywhere near perfecting this, there's a bit of learning time yet to come in front of us.
The real opportunity is the context and the ethics that's part of all of the Internet of Things. So when I say context, I mean, how are we going to use the data from this particular conversation that we're having in this moment in time, and how are we going to use previous conversations or previous behaviors to inform this better? And should we, that starts to become an ethical question, right? Use a lot of that additional context, and how can we tie into additional platforms or other behaviors that could help inform this moment too? It's just going to continue growing as more AI is embedded in your house, so it starts to track your movements. You've got to be able to opt in and allow that to happen. It starts tracking your movements, and suddenly you don't have to worry about the temperature anymore because it's actually just reacting to where you are. Same thing with being in the car. The car is just going to show up to pick you up to go to work. The entire movement around making the human at the center of the experience is both one that is incredibly challenging from a technical perspective, and it's going to challenge us individually to think about where our limits are. You know, what are we comfortable giving up from our behavioral data or our intellectual data that's going to enable us to have more frictionless experiences? And it's going to be on the companies that are building this to consider the ethics of that. What are they asking of customers and what are they doing with that data? It's a huge responsibility with a ton of potential to make things easier.
Does anyone from the crowd have any questions?
If anyone has any questions, we got a microphone here and here. Make your way to it. We'd love to hear who you are and if you're with a company, who you're with. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dennis Beim with Microsoft, and was curious, it's fascinating to see the range of different things you guys are doing, and I was curious when the initiatives first started, what were the core kind of business objectives for each of your initiatives, because it definitely spans a bunch of different things, and then how do you set KPIs and measure to see if you're on track? When do you decide this platform isn't worth investing in any further? All sorts of things I'd be curious about.
It's so early. A big push was for us to be able to get where our customers are, and you know, we see the big tech companies investing in AI, and we're along with that journey too. Our customers were putting Alexa in their homes. 97% of customers or consumers who have smartphones use texting. So these were just no-brainers for us. If we want people to be able to interact with us wherever they are, that's where we need to be. And so that's really, for Capital One, been the primary drive. Go to where the customers are. And when it comes to about KPIs, we're still so early, we're just learning customer behavior. If we're not learning anything about our customer behavior and making those experiences more engaging, which we would see in returning usage, for example, then we're not on the right track, but it's not a pull the plug kind of situation. It's a reinvest, continue to do the research so that we understand what the real opportunity is for these new platforms that are not going away. This is the future.
So it sounds kind of like how deepening brand engagement, how do you have increased brand affinity because you're where customers want you to be?
That plus the experience is tailored to the audience and the use cases in which they're using that particular channel. Yep.
And I'll say we sort of get in this moment too. I mean, what my company does is sort of new next now, right? And so there's always this moment of, is this have enough scale? You know, where's the moment where we can take that risk and be first to market without wasting our money? And it's very unique for each brand when they're ready to make that leap. I think, you know, Chris and 1-800-Flowers has always sort of been out there almost as the consumers are first maybe getting there, and then they have that first mover advantage because they get there before their competitors do. So I think it depends on each brand.
Yeah, I would say for us, it really was the same thing about getting out in front of where a certain segment of consumers are spending their time. How can we engage with them on their terms and conditions? What do we learn from that? And, you know, if I take Gwyn as an example, we're on our third iteration of Gwyn right now, getting great learnings, learning that the consumer is comfortable spending more time than we expected interacting with Gwyn if we're getting in helping to find the right product. But again, in a very conversational manner. But then once they're ready for checkout, let's get them through the checkout funnel as fast as we can. So it's things like that that we're learning.
Speed is a really important kind of defining market dynamic when we approach experimentation. We experiment on a lot of different platforms, and we're very conscious of business objectives, but also consumer behaviors and insights off of whatever's happening on that platform. And so we really prioritize speed to get to market quickly, see what's happening. And in the case with Alexa, our lighting team at CES, they unveiled an integration for a couple of GE light bulbs, and we're actually building on like a lamp that's built off of a mini dot. And so we shared our experience with the lighting team, who are working on a different skill that has probably closer ties to a GE business and commercial value. So I think, to answer your question, we really think about speed and then how to share kind of those learnings across the organization.
In fact, we were actually talking about that a little bit beforehand, that there's also the internal metric of how quickly can we get something to market as a 40,000 employee brand like Capital One. Fewer than 50 people are responsible for Eno over the course of 10 weeks. It was several months ahead of time of putting all the pieces into place, getting the right talent in the room. But then once we were in that position, it was how quickly can we go? So I think to be competitive in these sorts of spaces as a brand, you still have to be able to find ways to align your internal organization to be lean.
Sir?
Thanks.
Hi guys, I'm Ben Rose. I'm from a health insurer called NIB in New Zealand and Australia. My question's for you, Steph. It's about Eno. Specifically, how did you, in a regulation-driven and compliant industry, how did you go about getting your internal stakeholders to buy into what you were doing so that you could deliver in 10 weeks?
So the internal stakeholders, we're really fortunate, are all supportive. We've got great legal teams. We were able to, in a totally compliant way, using a lot of the precedent that we had set with SMS-based notifications, build on what were really one-way kinds of conversations already. So we actually built an SMS chatbot, we just didn't know it originally, where we would put out notifications and say, do you want to make a payment, text yes to confirm or deny to, we gave them language to use, and 33% of the people who got those notifications would reply back with something other than those two options we gave them. And we were not responsive to a third of our customers as a result because we couldn't understand. We said, do this or that, and they wanted to do their own thing, which is, of course, human nature. So we should be responsive to that. So we actually had data to support why we needed to be in this space, too. And so the stakeholders were, of course, all for being where our customers are. And then when it came to the substance of the information, it was all compliant. It was, again, the kind of information that we would already be sending through SMS notifications. That said, what also is the biggest brand opportunity here is not exactly what was the most regulated information in the sense that it's like, I'm giving you your balance, and that's a factual, substantive, personal information. But it's the stuff that's around the margins. So Eno has a character. Our head of AI design, Audra Coakley-Plummer, comes out of Pixar and Lucasfilm, and she developed characters for Shrek and Ratatouille. And these characters have flaws, and they have values, and they have consistency. And what we find is that to develop a genderless bot like Eno, who knows it's a bot, by the way, not trying to be a human, enables the customer to start asking questions around the margins of the use case. And it's around the margins that you actually start to develop real engagement because you understand the person or the thing that you're interacting with better. So it's not a coincidence that people are asking Alexa for a joke. It's their number 2 use case because they want to know Alexa, right? And it's not a coincidence that team is regularly making jokes as a result because they want the engagement. So, there's the compliance, but the real opportunity, which is like table stakes, the real opportunity is what kind of a character do we want to be for the customers who we want to develop relationships over the next 20 years.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm right here. So, it's a panel question. I think you just can't see me. I'm behind you. Hello.
Hi, Ron.
Moderator. There you go. Hey. I'm like, hey, good to see you guys. Great to see you in the panels. This is Ron from Tech Breakfast, and I have a couple questions for you. First of all, second to the Alexa fart machine, which of course a lot of kids discover very early, Labracadabra is one of my son's, who's 7 years old, favorite Alexa thing, and he's hit the joke, by the way, is that Proton goes to the teacher and says, I've lost my electron. The teacher says, are you sure? And the Proton says, yes, I'm positive. So, but onto the joke. There it is. It was a teaching joke, see? Teaching joke. So my two questions, first of all, is about the authentication issue. Stephanie, as you know, one of the people's concerns with apps, Alexa skills that involve private information like bank account information is if you can go to the Alexa device and say, hey, what's my bank account balance? And of course, Alexa doesn't do voice authentication. Then the concern is that anybody can walk up to a device and ask that machine and get the answer. And I think the issue with the code is, of course, also if you hear that code, especially my son who seems to remember everything I say, we'll just repeat that. Have you thought about two-factor authorization, using like a paired mobile device that goes with it and say, okay, well, I know you've configured your Alexa device for your bank account information. I'm going to send you a message to your phone. Please repeat that code. Have you done any sort of multi-factor authentication? And then have a second follow-up to that.
Yeah, we explored that early on, but similar to what Chris was saying, we didn't want to take people out of channel. We didn't want to make them jump extra hoops when we already had a way to get through a second layer that was optional for security purposes. So, so we explored it early on and decided to go with the more frictionless but still more secure route.
Okay. And then the second question has to do more with brand disintermediation. And I've been really concerned about this because the way you make Alexa do things is, of course, is you install skills. But when you install those skills, they're very specific to that brand that you've install the skill. So for example, let's say I want to use Expedia or Travelocity for travel reservations. When I say Alexa skill, hey Alexa, tell me when the next flight is out, it's going to use Travelocity or Expedia that I've configured. And now all of a sudden, these other brands are completely cut out of the interaction mechanism with that user. And of course, that breaks the whole, when you're on the web or you're on a mobile device, you're doing discovery because I do a search. And I have all those search options. And of course, if I'm paying for a higher listing in Google search, I will get that higher ranking, but that whole thing does not exist on the conversational side. So I've been very concerned about brands saying, if I can get my skill installed first on the Alexa device or Google Home, then I own that customer relationship, and now no other brand can come into it, which is both an opportunity and a huge disintermediation problem. So have you thought about, like in the case of 1-800-Flowers, if I install the Alexa skill from your competitor, now all of a sudden 1-800-Flowers is no longer able to fulfill any of the requirements from that device there on forward.
Yeah, so that's why we think a first mover advantage is very important in these emerging spaces. Not only the learning you get, but sometimes you get some blocking benefit out of it. But in this case also, I think we come to another aspect. We don't look at these channels today as advertising channels. We look at these channels as engagement channels. I look at it to go back to an early form of our technology revolution, the telephone. It's all of my other marketing efforts that get customers to choose what channel they access us. And if there's a consumer that's very actively using Alexa, well, I want them to be able to access my brand because something else stimulated them through Alexa. So we need to be on that platform. So there's the risks and the challenges involved, but I think the opportunity to solidify that relationship is even greater.
This also changes the dynamic and introduces new players. Suddenly Amazon's a search engine and is now in a position of being able to work. I mean, I already know brands that are working with Amazon to ensure that they become, that they no longer need a branded keyword, that they essentially own a keyword, and that suddenly puts Amazon in the position of Google.
Yeah, it certainly does, and it's going to be very interesting to watch that dynamic play out, because especially now as Google Home and Google Assistant moves more and more into the forefront, and it will, it's a wonderful product. They're going to be looking to take probably a little different model, introduction model than Amazon did. Amazon took the model, say, hey, let's get out there, let's go after that first mover advantage, where I think Google's going to be looking to monetize it pretty early on. And then how does that start to change those dynamics?
I mean, I think it's a similar struggle with, like, what's happening in the streaming space too. And I think it just goes back to, inherent preferences. As a consumer, you are already, the choices you're making on other platforms. But if you want to watch a movie, or you want to watch a great show, or you're going to watch it on Apple TV, on Roku, on Hulu. And so I think it's a challenge that I think a lot of, it doesn't matter what vertical or industry you're in, I think these preferences that people inherently are choosing are part of it.
Hi guys, Brian Slider-Gaston. I work for House Party in New York. I had a quick question.
Love House Party.
Awesome to hear. Stephanie, you had mentioned the data sharing issue with Alexa and sort of getting that feedback loop. And you'd sort of talked about envisioning a more immersive experience. And Sam, you had as well, sort of how the platforms interplay over time. How do you guys envision overcoming that sort of data ownership and data sharing issue, where it's arguably very proprietary, and creating those really immersive experiences? I realize this is, potentially years and years down the road, but what does that look like going forward?
For us, the start of it is to take what we know from the existing, for us, transactional data, and start to answer the question that people actually want to have answered. We have historically, and you all know this, and you sign in to look into your bank account, we list things as transactions, and the common denominator here is lists. We have a lot of lists. As we get into things like texting, and as we get into voice, lists are not working. That's great for a big GUI, and that's not great for being on the go. So we have to get deeper and deeper about why you're looking for your balance, for example, or why are you asking for your recent transactions? Because if we try to list them out in Alexa, you don't want to listen to it. And plus, the data itself, we continue to enhance the transactions so that we're able to understand, for example, 1-800-Flowers versus saying, store number 3165 on, Connecticut Avenue. that is the kind of data problem that's actually underpinning us being able to totally capitalize on a frictionless voice experience. So for us, it's, for example, at Grace Hopper last fall, we launched How Much Did I Spend? And to be able to answer the question, how much did I spend at Amazon last month? In your traditional GUI interface means you sit down, you sign into your bank account, you download a CSV of all your transactions, you open it up, you add it up, you delete all the things that aren't Amazon, and then you've got your number once you've actually summed it. Nobody's doing that, right? It's very easy for an interface like Alexa, it's very easy for us to do math as a service. And so to start getting more contextually relevant, to start providing more insight-driven kinds of experiences through these conversational UIs to complement what you know already with the GUIs or what you might need to do there is step one. And if we start getting more insight-driven kinds of experiences out in the market, that's going to enable us to start tying them together into larger conversations across platforms.
Yeah, I think the onus is on us, is on other brands and advertisers rather than the platforms themselves, because I mean, yes, it would be amazing to get, you know, all kinds of data from Amazon around the performance of our skill, but we're not gonna get them to move any quicker than they want to. And it's so crucial, to Steph's point, it's so critical to think about some other data signals that we can see, that we can, you know, measure, whether they're on that platform or through a behavior that's, you know, tangentially related to something else. And so I just think the onus is on you know, other third parties who are innovating and experimenting in these places to just be really smart and entrepreneurial around how to manufacture and make the best of the data signals that we have that are out there.
Gotcha. Thank you, guys.
Hi, I'm Ryan Johnson. I work at Mindshare. I was just curious. I mean, it sounds like you're putting, you know, this obviously is a lot of work. You put a lot of money into creating iterations of these bots and your ad campaigns behind them and everything. Are you hitting kind of usage goals that you wanted to? And are you seeing, you know, at this point, kind of getting, you know, what you wanted out of it from a consumer standpoint?
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at that first. The answer is yes. Again, that's somewhat qualified by our earlier answer, which was in the early days, it's just all about what kind of learning we're getting, what we're seeing. We're just coming up on a year since we launched our first bot in Messenger, and then followed a couple of weeks after that. So this next quarter will 1 year anniversary our bot, Alexa, and Gwen. So we've gotten enough learning now, like I said, where we started to make some different changes to the interface of Gwen, getting some data where we're finding that 80% of consumers who interact with her will like to interact with her again in the future. So it shows that our iterative design is working. How many pages they're interacting with, or how many questions to go back and forth on a dialogue, where we are on how many orders we're getting, what we're learning from on bots, where we really needed to delineate so that people knew that they were going to interact with a bot, or if they wanted a human interaction, they can go down that tree as well. So making it clear when they're interacting with a bot. We're just now in the process of now kind of moving those 3 products and others that are upcoming now in the next few months out of kind of the R&D world and more now into the business ownership world, where those metrics now will start to get more applied, more attention and diligence behind driving certain metrics.
Could we be the first U.S. bank to enable customers to interact with their accounts online, or interact with their accounts through Alexa? Yes, that was, you know, question number 1. Can we answer that? Same thing with the SMS chatbot. Could we get something to market in 8 weeks, basically, that would be functional for customers to use and delightful too? Yes. Beyond that, the metrics for us are actually a little bit nerdier in the sense that for something like Eno, we want to know with a great sense of accuracy what you mean by thumbs up. Is that within the context of this conversation overall, or your interaction with Eno? And that's actually really tough to do. When you start getting into the design of the experience itself, we don't want to just be functional and give you the use cases. We want to actually get smarter really fast as possible, and that becomes really our driver. How quickly can we advance our own understanding of the impact that we're having on customers and understand our customer behavior so that we can design better experiences everywhere else, that this might actually be the same kind of pattern. So it's absolutely about learning. It's absolutely about learning, number one. Because we believe that by investing in the learning, you actually end up getting all of the other engagement metrics that come once you've actually developed a wonderful product.
And I think, Ryan, from like a media standpoint, it's like, how do you get an investment level for a brand to go in, right? Like learning sounds great, but are they gonna write a check? Is one of the challenges. And I think you have to really like focus in on what the KPI is that the specific brand is comfortable with risking for. So we did something with one of our partners for Aero Mexico, and it was just a chatbot. It was very simple. It was trying to buy a plane ticket faster, and they saw like a 72% jump in efficiency, which meant millions of dollars in saving on the back end. They weren't really as concerned in that case about how many people interacted with it, you know, what impressions levels they hit, but what they did was then they went big with it right after that because they saw what they could do on the back end and it enabled the media spend. So I think sometimes it's really like focusing on that one thing and kind of breaking the model a little bit and saying, hey, this isn't going to fit in the media plan traditionally, but if we can just isolate this one thing and test and learn, you have a chance to kind of grow it from there.
We have time for one last question. Go ahead.
Awesome, I'll take it. My name is Tina. I work for Moxie, which is a Publicis agency, and I think serendipitously this microphone is illustrating part of my question. I wanted to go back to the language and how this is developed. So Stephanie, maybe a question for you is, when you're learning, do you take that learning and aggregate it into mass, or do you personalize it? And the reason I'm saying that is this was set up for someone, I guess they thought the average height would be higher, right?
Yep.
So my point is, I work for, or my client is a very large telecom, and we're infusing chatbots now, but what we're learning is the responses aren't the same for geolocation, for millennial, age versus all of that stuff. So we're trying to figure out the sticky algorithm of how do you figure out who you're talking to and respond accordingly,
Yep, that's
or
right.
do you do it for a common denominator and then hope that's okay?
There's no algorithm for emotional intelligence, and that's what we're after is emotional intelligence. So the AI capabilities, it's a constant pendulum swing between the anthropological research that we're doing on the level of one to be able to design for the level of one. For example, we have a woman who we spoke to recently who, for 11 months of the year, she's disciplined in her money management, and then 1 month of the year she splurges and she buys drinks for the bar and she buys whatever she wants. She goes on trips. And so if we were just looking at the data in mass, at scale, she would all of a sudden be an anomaly, and then we might be worried, and then we might be going after a customer that has no problem at all because the previous 11 months look different than this month, right? But that's part of her lifestyle. So we are constantly having this pendulum swing between understanding customers and their motivations and individual habits and the data that can, in aggregate, actually keep us away from being able to design with emotional intelligence, but at scale can help us identify patterns that we might want to dig more into. So for us, the goal here is to use, back to the original question about what does the future look like? What data should we be paying attention to? Because it starts to get into an ethical question and also a context question. Do we want to design for people's context? Or do we want to design for ours based on the data? And we want to design with emotional intelligence.
And I think that's what we want to design, and those are some of the challenges in front of us. I look at that as just a fantastic opportunity. And again, it's coming out of a call center world, as our company kind of grew out of. I always used to be running tests of how do I route calls from the South to people who are working, contact agents who are from the South, and trying to match up those kind of geographic or cultural capabilities. Very, very difficult to do. As we overcome these challenges, as we overcome these questions that we have in front of us on how best to apply this technology, it gives us the ability to do that personalization at scale that we can never do with humans. We just could not do it. And the consistency is tremendous.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to, you introduce new variables into a conversation. It opens up, all these other complications. And so I think bots and skills that do one thing and just do one thing really well are seeing great, success.
And I'm sure we are never going to hit the day where we will have 3 Alexa units up here who can do as good a job as you guys did. Steph, Chris, and Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Fred. We're going to break for a half-hour coffee break brought to us by our partner, Salesforce, out there.